With the Falcons having a day off from training camp, let's go back down memory lane and celebrate the player that started many of our Falcon fandom, Michael Vick.
You are Locked On Falcons, your daily Atlanta Falcons podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back, everyone, to another illustrious episode of the Locked On Falcons podcast, your daily Atlanta Falcons podcast, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more as the playoffs wind down and the sports stop sporting like we want them to. This summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a daily boost or bonus. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. And shout out to the everydayers that make this illustrious podcast their first watch or their first listen each and every day. And to become an everydayer, all you have to do is subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you don't know me, I'm your very humble host, Aaron Freeman. And of course, today is a Falcons Historian Player Shootout. And that means my co-host, Allen Strk, is with me. And this is part of our summer-long series where we have a trivia tournament talking about Falcons legends from the past 20 years. And we have a very, very illustrious legend, perhaps the legend, right? You know, no offense to Matt Ryan, but he's the player that we're going to talk about today that probably a large percentage of the people listening or watching this episode right now is the big reason why they are Falcon fans today. And that is, of course, Michael Vick. And I myself am coming on the hot seat to answer trivia questions about Michael Vick, and I'll be going up against Cory Woodroof, who has been very impressive, one of the favorites now that we are in the semifinals, right, with Vick and Julio Jones and Matt Ryan, the only players left. And, you know, Cory's been killing it, and I do not have really much of any confidence that I'm going to win this matchup, but I feel like, you know, we have a moral victory here from one of the hosts of this series.
Hold on. Dude, you just went 5 for 5 in the quarterfinals. Stop it. Don't give this spiel. I'm cutting this off right now. You just destroyed Matt Chernoff. Like, come on.
It was a very impressive performance. It's kind of like one of Michael Vick's playoff performances against the Rams. And then, you know, this is going to be my Eagles game. That's basically what I'm saying. You know, I'm worried about Brian Dawkins roaming out in the secondary, going to be knocking dudes out, and that's Cory. But if you don't know Cory, of course, covers the NFL and various other topics for the Win at USA Today. He is a former contributor at the Falcoholic, former contributor at Rise Up Reader. That's where Cory first got his start and made his first appearances on this podcast basically a decade ago, back in the day, back when it was Falcons podcast, RIP. But Allen, Cory, welcome back to another Falcons Historian Player Shootout.
Awesome. Yeah, semifinals time. And I want to get right back into it because, Cory, we were talking before the show that you started becoming a Falcons fan in 2004. Was Vick the main reason?
So it's a mix. I think that, like, part of it has to be that just Vick was so ubiquitous in the culture, and he was in the video game, like, you know, and I had that on GameCube, I think, and, you know, just throwing touchdowns to, I think Joe Horn was on that Falcons team, so it was just
not yet.
Okay, yeah. So maybe we traded for him for some reason. I don't know, video games, but that was part of it, and then the other part, and this is honest to God truth, I had to get a football shirt for school because I was in early middle school at that time, and they had like a football day, and I went to the Sears by my house to go buy one, and the Falcons shirt was on sale and the Titans stuff was not, so I bought the Falcons shirt like, maybe this is a good idea, and now I'm here. So
Aaron brought up before just how many fans became fans of the Falcons because of it.
Mm-hmm.
Aaron, given that you weren't quite writing yet, but this is back 2001, do you remember that moment where the Falcons trade up to get Vick, and what were your original thoughts of it?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've said it on the podcast before, but I think that moment when I found out the news, because I want to say it was like a week before the draft, that 01 draft, found out the news that we were trading up for Vick is probably like one of the 2 or 3 happiest moments of my life as a Falcon fan.
Wow.
Because with Vick, like he was such a sort of, I don't know, how would you describe it? Like he was just such a unique player, like the unicorn of all unicorns when it came to the quarterback position. And there was so much expectation with him, given the 2 very successful years that he had at Virginia Tech, that he was going to sort of change the league. But my personal history with Michael Vick goes back even way further before his days at Virginia Tech, because he, like me, were both natives of Newport News, Virginia, Bad News, Virginia, as we often call it, the 757. And I remember seeing Vick, I think his freshman year, because my older brother, who's about 5 years ahead of me, was in the band from what would eventually become my local high school. And they played, my local high school was Minchville in Newport News. And they played Ferguson, which was, I think, Aaron Brooks's original high school. And then Vick went there for his freshman year and then transferred to Warwick after that school closed. But I remember, because my brother was in the band, I would go to all the football games. And I remember I have this vivid memory of seeing Vick warming up pre-game. And he was just like launching these bombs to the receivers or whoever it was. And I just vividly remember he threw the ball so far and so high that it looked like a punt. And I was like, who is that? And then, but like, that was kind of my first introduction to Vick. So he was a player that I had basically had my eyes on since I was like, I don't know, like 12 or 13 at that time. And, you know, watching his progress in Virginia Tech, and then sort of seeing his star sort of rise and seeing the Falcons trade up to get him in that draft. It was just kind of a big moment, like, okay, this is a new era of Falcons football, because we had just come off the Super Bowl a couple of years earlier. There's been a couple of down years, and it was just like this ushering in of this potentially great era. And so all that to say is, like, I just remember that was a big day when I found out that news. I just remember being so giddy. And so that was a big day for me, for my fandom. It's a defining day for my fandom in terms of Michael Vick being like, you know, my favorite player is going to be on my favorite team.
That really hit home, considering that the local ties and then, you know, the national, you know, your favorite football team, just considering how it all, I guess, aligned, you could say. So Cory, looking now back, let's go. We'll talk a little bit about 02, 03 eventually, but I just want to get from your perspective, you know, 04, but then you watched it 05, 06. What captivated when it comes to watching Vick on a week-to-week basis? Obviously, we talk about the scrambling ability, his arm strength, but was it the aura as well, the sneakers? Like, what made you so connected with Michael Vick?
Well, he had a whole culture around him. I mean, I think that, like, you know, as much as you look at Brady and Manning as the prototypical quarterbacks that kind of carried that 20th century quarterback flavor into the new century, and obviously won the MVP awards, really centered things on, you know, them being kind of the defining faces at the position. I mean, Vick was carving out his own just magnanimous legacy. And I just like watching him play. There wasn't anything quite like it at that time. Obviously, he was a kind of a forerunner for the dual threat quarterback. You could tell that this was not something that the NFL was used to. Defenses really struggled figuring it out. Like, Vick could kind of have his way when he used his legs. He was also a really, really good passer. But, you know, I think that, like, everyone focuses on the off-field stuff, and it's impossible not to, because that ended up being probably half of the defining part of his career. But I think that the Falcons, you know, like happens to a lot of Falcons greats, there was just a lot of underachieving around him, and they just weren't quite able to get where they could have gone with his talent. But I also wonder, we didn't see the best version of Vick, and that's the crazy thing, is like, we did not see the best version of this player for a lot of mitigating factors, and it just blows my mind to think, like, if he had lived up to his potential in the real way, what would it have done to the Falcons? I think they probably would have won a Super Bowl. Like, I think if they had everything that they needed around him and he had lived up to what he had done, he was like perfectly tailored.
Well said. He's admitted that Andy Reid really polished him, and Marty Morningway. Once he got to Philly, he started becoming a true professional, working under Don McNabb and that coaching staff, and that's where you saw him become more accurate. I think he was always kind of a rack in the lab. Like, there'd be weeks where you see the flashes of, but it was never sustained consistency, and that's why I think always kind of played them. Like, I know Greg Knapp, rest in peace, gets a lot of slack, but I still think Vick's mechanics definitely tailored off in like 05, 06. And you even saw the fumbles. Like, Aaron, I remember we were talking right when we were becoming friends, like 07, 08, we would talk about how like Vick's fumbles in 06 were so frustrating. Like, and that's where we kind of saw the decline of that era and eventually the dismissal of Jim Moore Jr.
I don't think the franchise was ready for that talented of a player. And that kind of is a bummer to admit. But I think that because of the ownership changes that just really kicked in a couple of years earlier, like everything was still getting figured out. There was kind of changing of the coaching staffs. And obviously once Petrino got to town, everything kind of went to junk. So it's just like the franchise was declining and it didn't set itself up for a player like Vick. But like you mentioned, when he went to Philly, he was able to be the professional that everyone knew he could be if he'd gotten everything right. And obviously he had to do a very dramatic dip to get there. But I mean, I just think that it was the right player for the right city and the right moment, but it was the wrong infrastructure. And that's what ended up dooming everything.
Well said. And I just want to ask you two schematic questions. One, do you think Greg Knapp held Vick back? And Vick talks about how him and Bobby Petrino were really clicking during OTAs, and he thinks Bobby Petrino would have helped produce an MVP caliber season. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, well, I mean, the whole reason the Falcons hired Bobby Petrino was to sort of build an offense around Vick, right? The downfall of the Greg Knapp offense was that they were trying to make Michael Vick into Steve Young. That was sort of their template for what they wanted him to be, and with a lot of West Coast offense, a lot of sort of dinking and dunking type of offense, and you contrast that with the Dan Reeves offense. And I know there's a lot of Falcon fans that sort of have a revisionist history of like, oh, if the Falcons had never fired Dan Reeves, Michael Vick would have lived up to his potential because he wouldn't have played in that Greg Knapp offense, which was, wasn't an offense that was really designed to kind of, let Vick kind of run around and just heave up deep bombs like he did, in 02 and to a lesser extent in 03 when he came back from the injury. I tend to push back against that narrative just because you already kind of saw the relationship between Dan Reeves and Michael Vick started fray in that 03 season with him coming back from the injury and Reeves wanting him to come back earlier in the season and Vick being like, I'm not going to come back until I'm 100%. And that ultimately, I think, is where Vick's issues came, where Cory's talking about. It was a roller coaster with Vick, where when he was on his game and when he was playing at his A level, he was virtually unstoppable. But you would get, as Allen said, these dips in games where he would just kind of play like a C-level quarterback. And I think that was the big challenge that the Falcons under Jim Moore and Greg Knapp were trying to get him to be consistent. And you saw, progress there over the course of the 05 season and towards the middle of the 06 season. And then things kind of skidded off the rails. But yeah, I do think Bobby Petrino with his sort of college offense, that's really, to me, the thing about Vick was like, he came at a time when the NFL from a schematic standpoint wasn't really ready for that type of player. It became much later in his, towards the end of his career, where you started to seeing offenses develop. You saw it with Bobby Petrino, Lamar Jackson in Louisville. That's kind of the idea of what that offense could have been in the NFL. And so that was a missed opportunity. And so there was a lot of untapped potential with Vick here in Atlanta, and we just never got to see it because, what Cory says, it's like it just nothing seemed to line up. You didn't get sort of the best of Vick. You didn't get the best of the infrastructure around them. You didn't get best of the talent around them.
Let's end this on a high note because we didn't really talk much about the 2002 season. Of course, the epic Packers performance. But I wanted to just talk about two plays, and I left these two plays out of the trivia just because to me, these are the two greatest plays in Vick's history as a player. Maybe the big touchdown against the Washington football team, or you want to refer to him as this point. That Monday night game was epic. But to me, the two best plays of Vick's career was when he evaded Kabir Baja-Bielmilla in the playoffs. What seemed like a certain sack had turned into like a 15-yard gain. And then, of course, the game-winning scramble against the Vikings. Aaron, I want to go to you since 02. You're watching live both plays. What do you recall from seeing those moments?
That still, I think, is the defining play of Michael Vick's career, that whenever they show his highlight reel, that is the play where he splits two defenders and they run into each other and he sprints to a touchdown, he sprints into the tunnel and whatnot. So yeah, it was an incredible play. Like I don't, it speaks for itself, I think, in terms of when you watch it. It is kind of one of the defining plays of not only Michael Vick's career, but really that kind of era of football, which in terms of what he could do as a playmaker at that position.
You feel the same, Cory?
Yeah, I mean, I went back before this and rewatched like the greatest plays of his thing, and like he had the he had the golden control to be able to do what he needed to do in those just great moments.
I just want to mention what the Vikings before we get to the trivia portion is the fact that he ran for 173 yards that game. He did set a quarterback single game record at that time. And Dan Reeves basically told him the Vikings are playing a lot of man coverage. And he said, if you just see no one really there, take off. And Vick did it repeatedly that game. So it's very fitting that game ended on such a dramatic moment, but of course it involved Vick scrambling and doing what he does best. So 2002 Mike Vick, I think that was one of those seasons where people will never forget. I know 04 kind of gets mentioned more, but 2002 was he really set it off then. So yeah, it was great looking back on those memories because it's been over 2 decades at this point.
Let's get into the trivia portion. Allen will be asking Cory 5 questions. Then later he'll be asking me 5 questions. Of course, whoever gets the most correct will be moving on to the finals to talk about the player that led to that uptick in Falcon success. That is Matt Ryan. So let's get into that as we continue today's Locked On Falcons Historian Player Shootout. Now, the NFL preseason is gearing up, but even despite that fact, there isn't a whole lot of things going on in the sports world, and that's why FanDuel is here to help you out with a daily boost or bonus. That's right. This summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a booster bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Just head over to FanDuel.com and you can make the most out of your summer. And if you want to look ahead to the upcoming NFL season, you can already put down money for that week 1 matchup between the Falcons and Pittsburgh Steelers, where the Falcons are currently favored by 2.5 points. And if you like that line, if you feel good about the Falcons winning that game by a field goal or more, then why not head on over to FanDuel and, put your money where your mouth is by visiting FanDuel.com again to make the most out of your summer. FanDuel is an official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball.
All right, Cory, here we go. Who caught Michael Vick's first career touchdown pass?
Alge Crumpler.
That is correct. Question 2. In the 2004 season, Vick became the first quarterback ever to throw for 250 yards and rush for 100 yards in the same game. Who was the opponent?
That'd be the Broncos.
That is correct. Who was the one Falcons player involved in the trade to get the number 1 pick from the Chargers?
Oh, my.
Aaron liked that question.
I like that question because I actually know the answer to this. So I'm like,
is it Keith Brooking?
No, it was Tim Dwight.
Tim Dwight, yeah. I never would have gotten it.
Man. True old school question there.
Okay, continue.
Question 4. Vick threw 4 touchdown passes in 2 games during his final season with the Falcons in 2006. Name both of the opponents.
Ooh. Yikes. Gosh.
I feel like one of them is pretty obvious, so I had to do both.
One of them was the Bucks. And then the other was the Saints?
Their final answer?
Yes.
Both are incorrect. It was the Steelers and the Cowboys.
Ah, bummer.
Yes.
Okay.
Steelers one I think is pretty memorable. Dallas one I was like, I'm not sure.
Fair enough.
Final question. Vick threw 3 touchdown passes in 4 playoff appearances with the Falcons. Name all 3 players who caught touchdown pass.
Alge Crumpler, Peerless Price, and Sean Jefferson.
Well done. I did not expect that. Okay. I thought Crumpler and Price, but Sean Jefferson, there we go.
I forgot about the Sean Jefferson one.
And 2002 against the Packers. Nice, Cory. All right. You ended strong. Started strong, teetered a bit, but 3 out of 5 in the semis is that's a job well done.
Cory, you have anything to say before you watch me fumble the ball in this one?
I don't know, man. I'm kind of curious how this is going to go. I think this is going to go to overtime. That's my guess. I think this will be a sudden death.
Yeah, well, we'll see. So I will be on the hot seat, and we'll see if I can, win this thing or send this in overtime. We'll see as we wrap up today's Locked On Falcons. It is summertime, and while you won't be able to spend your afternoons or mornings down in Flowery Branch watching the Falcons practice for training camp, you can spend your afternoons and evenings in the ballpark with Gametime, an authorized ticket marketplace for Major League Baseball. Gametime is great because you can shop flash deals where you can save on exclusive in-app deals on select seats ahead of the game, and prices actually go down in the Gametime app just before that first pitch comes out. And of course, you can always pick out the perfect spot to catch that fly ball so you can get a souvenir with their panoramic seat views before you buy. You don't have to worry about hidden fees at checkout. Gametime is taking the guesswork out of buying tickets, whether it's for baseball, other sports, comedy, music, theater, whatever event is near you. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL, and you'll get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL. That's LOCKEDONNFL. For $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guarantee.
2004, Vick earned one first place MVP vote, preventing which quarterback from winning the award unanimously?
2004?
Yes.
Peyton Manning.
That's correct. Vick returned from fracturing his right fibula during the 2003 season in December. He ran for over 100 yards once out of his 5 starts. Who was the opponent he ran for over 100 yards against?
I believe that's the Panthers.
That is correct.
Okay.
Which player caught the most touchdown passes from Vick during the 2002 season?
Well, I know the player who caught it over his career, so I'm going to assume this also applies to 2002. But I don't know. Algie Crumpler.
2002 is tricky because it was just they had a lot of different players. You're gonna go Crumpler?
I'm going with Crumpler. It could be 2 other answers, but I'm gonna bet on Crumpler.
Answer is incorrect. It was Brian Finnerton with 6.
See, it was because I knew it was either Crumpler, because basically only 3 people caught passes from Michael Vick in 02. It was Crumpler, Finneran, and Trevor Gaylor, and I figured it was going to be Crumpler, but dang it. All right.
I was rooting for Trevor Gaylor. He had one against, I think it was the Lions on like a ridiculous 70-yard bomb.
Yeah.
But no, Trevor Gaylor was not near it. But yeah, it was Brian Finnerton. Salute. All right, question 4. Vick had 2 multi-rushing touchdown games during the 2005 season. Name both opponents.
I looked this up, and now I'm blanking on who it was. 2005. Was it the Saints and the Lions?
Fair final answer?
Usually when you ask that, that means I got one of these wrong. But I don't have any. Do I have another alternative option? No, that's my final answer. Yeah.
It's the Saints and the Jets.
Oh, the Jets.
He threw 3 picks in that game. It was an ugly game. I think Vinny Testaverde was starting that one, but Vick still managed to run for 2. They had the red jersey and the black pants that night. Prime time.
Man, dang.
Yeah.
Okay, so I got to get this right to send it in overtime?
Yep, this is it. It's a quick fun fact of that story. I used to play on the basketball team, and I skipped practice that Monday night to watch that game. You know why? Because I'm a true fan. And unfortunately, I had to run like 10 suicides next day.
Well, if you went to that practice, you might be in the NBA right now. So, it's a joke on you.
You'd have gone to play for St. John's. It would have been a whole thing. Yeah.
Could have went to the tournament. All right, here we go. Aaron, you have to get this right to force into overtime. In one of Vick's last terrific performances as a Falcon in 2006 against the Bengals, he threw 3 touchdown passes. Name all 3 players who caught a touchdown in that game.
Oh, God, I did not look this up.
Hey, you were pressuring me to raise my level when
you did. You did. No. This is on me. This is not on you. You're doing an outstanding job, Allen.
Aaron sweeped me up the last round, 5 for 5, and made it look very easy. So I was like, all right.
06 against the Bengals.
To me, that was the second best performance that year after the Steelers game.
Yeah. Okay, I just got to think of who was on the team. Okay. I think Des White was one of them. Okay, so I'm talking out loud. Des White, Ashley Lilly, Warwick Dunn, Algie Crumpler, Brian Finneran probably are among the options. I just got to figure out which of those 3. So I'm going to go with Crumpler, Des White, and probably a running back. So we'll go with Warwick Dunn.
Incorrect. It was Algie Crumpler, Michael Jenkins, and Justin Griffith.
Yeah, you didn't mention Michael Jenkins.
Oh, yeah,
he had like 8 touchdowns that season, I think.
Wow, Aaron.
I forgot Michael Jenkins was on that team.
Slipping, man, slipping. Cory, you made it to the championship.
Wow, how about that? I got eliminated in the first round last time, so this is great.
What a come up, man. The storybook run continues. The most lovable person on Falcons Twitter is made to the big time. You will be quizzed on Matt Ryan. You're going to have to do some research for that one, but you're going to probably remember every bit of it because who doesn't remember every bit of Matt Ryan? Oh, Aaron, how you feeling right now?
The Finneran question to me is the one I'm going to live with regret on. But it was a valiant effort. I knew you were going to bring your A game, Allen. So that's why I went into this with low expectations, because the usual tricks that I would have to get these questions right, I knew you would bring a little bit of a curveball. But congratulations to Cory. He's done an outstanding job in all 3 of these rounds of this historian shootout. So I feel like I went out. I went out with pride. I had a strong showing. Didn't quite make it all the way to the end, but I'm happy with my effort this time.
Cory, overall, then you've been battling through each round. Now you made it here.
Thank you. I didn't think I was going to get this one today. I thought Aaron would smoke me like just like a 5-2 or something. But nah, man, it's an honor to be able to beat the GOAT. That's the that's it. You and Dave are like the central brain of all the Falcons stuff. So it's just like, it is an honor to compete against you and to I guess win. Wow, I'm very competitive. So this is great. So okay, Allen, I am gonna quiz you real quick because I feel like I've got a bunch of the trivia facts and everything.
Give me 2. Give me 2.
Okay, Allen, your first question is: what team did Vick give double birds in the 2006 season that caused him to get in trouble?
Saints. Legendary moment.
Yes.
Right up there with D'Angelo Hall not catching the interception that led to a Hail Mary touchdown right before the half. Disgusting.
Absolutely. Okay. Who caught Vick's first pass?
Tony Martin.
Tony Martin. That is correct.
Dude, I've done like 2 weeks of preparation for this episode. So I was so excited. I listened to the Club Shay Shay episode. I've watched documentaries, because I really wanted to bring back Vick because just to give the listeners, I was very upset with Vick for a long time. I was definitely one of those haters. I think it wasn't until 2016 when him and Roddy against the Saints, the halftime show happened. I just kind of realized I need to let the resentment go. But for a long time, I was really upset with Vick. But I eventually let go, and I learned to appreciate him. And then just watching the documentary, it's just like, wow, he really was. We use the term generational talent. He was just a one of one, I guess, at this point. He was far above a generational talent.
I had a similarly, he was my favorite player, and so around 2006. The roller coaster was too much for me, and so I kind of turned on him. And it was about 2010, 2011, I think, when I sort of let the resentment go with Vick at that point in time. And it was a dark couple of years there, when it came to that stuff. Yes. But it's nice, I know there's probably some people watching or listening that still have that resentment, and that's. You're entitled to your opinion or whatever, but it was one of those things where it was like there was a moment where I was like, I feel like I'm supposed to still hate Michael Vick because of stuff, and then I realized I just don't really have that fire or anything anymore. I'm just hating him just for the sake of hating him, not because I really feel those emotions anymore.
Thank gosh people don't do that anymore with the Falcons.
Cory, let the people know what you're working on, especially now with training camp coming around.
Yeah, so I am at For the Win. Also make a guest appearance at the Falcoholic every now and again, but you can mainly find my stuff over at ftw.usatoday.com. You can find me spouting off terrible opinions on Twitter at Cory Woodroof 47. Well, I want to see if Allen can get these 3 real quick. Allen, got to, because then you'd be the winner, and then it's like everybody's happy.
I got eliminated in the first round, man. I'm hurt.
Well, this is your redemption, Allen. This is your
redemption. It's the thing. You can beat both of us. Who's the baseball team that drafted Vick in 2000?
Well, I know this one.
Was it the Rockies?
It was the Rockies. That's correct. Who is the quarterback that Vick kind of reassumed his starting role with in 2003 when he came back from his fibula? Who was starting for the Falcons until Vick returned?
Doug Johnson.
Doug Johnson. That's correct. and to be the winner of everything in 2006. Vick had 3 games where he rushed for over 100 yards. Who were the 3 opponents?
Oh, that's a good one. I know the Saints. Mm-hmm. The sudden death question was actually kind of related to that. It would have been fun to test you guys on that. Saints, Cardinals, and
I remember this. Now I know the 13 now.
Oh, okay, you got me here. All right, I'm just gonna pick a random guess here. Browns,
Bucks. That's also the team he threw 300 yards against when he was with the Falcons.
The Bucks have owned Vick so much throughout his career that I totally disregard the Bucks, but the Bucks were bad in 06.
And then my last question for either of you: who is the team that sacked Vick 7 times in the 2006 season?
Saints?
Mm-mm. Steelers?
Mm-mm. The Giants. Michael Strahan and company.
Oh man, he had that crazy touchdown against the Giants too. Mm-hmm. That was one of his more memorable touchdowns. Oh wow, the Giants, jeez.
The other weird fact I looked up: Michael Vick didn't win Comeback Player of the Year in 04. Drew Brees did, and I was like, wow.
Yeah, he didn't win it. He won it in 10 and 10, but he didn't get it. He didn't get it that season.
Like, how did he not win Comeback Player of the Year in 04?
Drew Brees pissing off Falcon fans, even as not a member of the Saints.
Drew Brees wasn't even hurt the previous year. Like, that's what's crazy about it. Like,
he was just not very good.
I guess. I think that's back in the day when they gave the Comeback Player of the Year for if you sucked the previous year. All right, guys. Well, we got one more of these that is going to be featuring David Shealy versus Will McFadden, and they will be talking all about Falcons legend Julio Jones on the wall of GOATs. There you guys have it. So that will be in store for you. I don't know when this episode is dropping. I don't know when that episode is dropping because, we got training camp and whatnot going on. So, we got to keep our eye on the prize. The current Falcons takes priority, unfortunately. But it is nice to go back down these memory rows with some of these Falcons legends. So look forward to that other round 3 matchup. We'll see who Cory is facing, whether it's Will or David. That is something to look forward to. That is going to do it for us here on this one. Appreciate Cory, appreciate Allen, appreciate myself, the humble podcast host, for entertaining you for the last 30 plus minutes. We'll be back again in the future. So, guys, that's going to do it for us here. We'll be back to cover the current events here with the Atlanta Falcons for tomorrow's practice with a guest. I believe that will be Josh Kendall of The Athletic to give his insights into Falcons practice on tomorrow's episode. We'll have another Falcons Historian Player Shootout probably towards the end of this week on Julio Jones, probably for the next time that the Falcons have a day off, whatever day that is. Friday, Saturday, whatever it is. So that is what you can look forward to in future episodes of Locked On Falcons. Make sure you make us your first listen by subscribing and following for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Check out Locked On Sports Today, Locked On Sports Atlanta, Locked On Hawks, Locked On Bulldogs, Locked On Braves. It's all part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.